Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the RevSteve from the Spiritual Awareness Center, located in Fresno, California. Fresno, the heart of the Central Valley, Central Valley, the heart of the great state of California. Welcome to the show. It is a great day. I'm glad to be here. I claimed this day before I even opened my eyes this morning, and I hope likewise that you did the same, because in fact and in truth, this day is a gift to each and every one of us, a gift from the Father, our Father, that who and that which not only birthed us, created us, but breathes through us, lives as us, expresses in our life, and is available to us. And I could go on, and well, that's kind of what the show's about. I hope you've been enjoying this series. We've been going through the book called This Thing Called Life by Ernest Holmes. Last week we started in chapter 6. Gonna hit that, take off from where we left off last time. But the last part of this chapter, and one reason why I wanted to leave this for almost a full show, was in this chapter, Dr. Holmes goes through the what's commonly known as the Lord's Prayer, and we're going to break that down for us. You know, oftentimes in New Thought, we don't think about that. We kind of attribute it to the other Christian part of our spiritual family, but in fact, it was taught to the disciples by the master teacher for a purpose. And included in that purpose, when you put it in context, is some powerful imaging, some powerful understanding, and it establishes a powerful relationship between the person speaking their word and the divine principle and the law which responds. So that's kind of where we're at. We got a little bit of a late start today, so we're going to move forward. I left off on page 53. Holmes was talking about faith is a power which every man has, but which few people use consciously. And understanding that it's in our conscious use, because actually we're utilizing the law at all times. We're utilizing that power at all times. But, you know, if we use it unconsciously, it's kind of like a ping pong ball on a pool table that just kind of bounces all over the place. We only experience the benefits that we were created to experience, that we may live our life and live it at higher and greater degree of livingness, or some people say more abundantly, when we begin to live our life consciously. You know, it was Joel Goldsmith, I believe, that coined the phrase practicing the presence of God. And he wasn't talking about doing that just at some special time of the week or the day, but he was talking about practicing the presence of God continuously throughout the day. Because in truth, all thought is creative. And in truth, we are an expression of God expressing as us. And that's an important statement to understand. We are an expression, not an expression that God has created, well, as true as that is, but we are also an expression of God expressing as each and every one of us. But we live kind of out there, not knowing the truth of who we are. And it's only when we begin to open up to an idea, a concept, that there is a greater truth above and beyond that which we experience in our day-to-day life, that once we begin to realize it, opens ourselves up to being able to partner with our true beingness in a way that, imagine, life was meant to be lived in peace, harmony, wholeness, abundance. That's the way it was meant to be lived. That's not something that I came up with or Dr. Holmes came up with. That's the truth, the absolute truth. And as we walk our spiritual path, as we move through and down our spiritual journey, we begin to realize, because, God is not something that we can look at and say, that's God. But we can look everywhere and see the effects of what God is in its creation. Think about that. So, faith, that's where it comes in. He says, one man does not possess this power above another. To a greater degree, everyone has the power, since everyone has consciousness. And there's where we make that connectedness. The law which holds us in bondage is the very law which can free us. The law of cause and effect, the law of karma, the great law that is coexistent with spirit. It is the responsive agent of God, if you will. God creates. The process of that creation is the process of the law acting upon the word or the thought of consciousness of God. So anyone can use this law of life. Holmes says, I'm certain you wish to use it for yourself, and I know that we all have a deep and sincere desire to use it for others. In other words, there are people that when they come across something that is amazing, they seek to keep it for themselves. When they do, they diminish themselves and whatever it is that they have sequestered. The truth is that this divine principle that we call God is everywhere present and is infinitely powerful, infinitely abundant, and infinitely available. When we allow ourselves to believe in limitation, we open up the Pandora's box to that which we call evil and many other things. It's the belief in limitation that is the root of all that we see in the world that is inharmonious with the divine. God is love. God is good. God is a provider. God is everywhere present. And God is, and we are some part of that. When we recognize our truth, when we accept the unity of oneness, we also accept this alignment with God, a knowingness that there is no limitation, a knowingness, and if we review through the New Testament the teachings of this fellow that we call the master teacher, this radical rabbi that ran through the world some 2,000 years ago, when we review the things that he taught, that are things that he taught, and there are some things that are included that were, let's say, edited in later. It's a story for another day. But when he tells us that we're one with, when he tells us that with God all things are possible, when he tells us that we should love God with all that we are and love our neighbor as ourself, and as we abide in those things in our life, that there is a power that we can utilize. All that he does we can do, and that much more. And there was a time when some of his followers, well, all of his followers initially, and then some later on, and then eventually that kind of evolved out of existence, but they were doing that. They were doing the things that he did. But there were people that didn't, because they failed to allow themselves to align in principle. We have people like that today. People that, even in New Thought, we have people that they look at this and they go, well, this is a great philosophy. It's a great spirituality, but it needs to be upgraded or morphed or changed, because It's not working. Well, is it that it's not working, or is it that we're not aligning ourselves with principle in all aspects of our own being and our own consciousness? People make the assumption sometimes, unconsciously even, that what goes on between their ears, in their mind, if you will, is known to them and them alone. So, when they want to affirm their good, well, they have an expectation of a manifestation and demonstration. But when they want to affirm something other than what's aligned with divine principle, they want to be excused for that. And the law of cause and effect says every effect has a cause. And you cannot not align yourself and expect God's good to demonstrate in your life. And we've kind of touched this topically over time, and we'll probably get to it at a little greater, higher degree as we go through this year. So, if you have questions about that, you can either email me or hang in there. We'll get to it, okay? Holmes goes on, he says, the law of life is already in your mind. Your problem is to apply it to your everyday needs. Naturally, the intelligence and the law which our God are abundantly able to bring to you or anyone everything necessary to happiness, to health, and to success. Whether you call these things spiritual, material, makes no difference, for God is everything and through everything, and God is everything. The power of life within you is a spiritual power able to bring to you permanent peace, increasing happiness and joy, and greater material abundance. Awesome stuff. Great stuff. We're going to pick it up there when we come back.
Hi everyone, I am Sparkle Sujin with the Everything Sparkle Show. Tune in every Thursday live at 4 p.m. You will see people that are motivational, inspirational, inspiring, and of course, entertaining. We have a great time. We learn things about how big celebrities are inspiring big names here in Fresno. Hugh Hefner is the reason we have Fresno Magazine, and Gnarly Charlie got his start because Johnny Carson told him to. So, tune in, you'll learn something new, and have a good time.
Highlights, balayage, color, extensions, cuts, pure Brazilian blowouts, treatments. Contact Jordan Myers at Hair by Jordan.
Did you know most hair and beauty salons in the Central Valley are not disposing of their chemicals correctly? Partner with us today to become an eco-friendly salon. Visit us online at greenbeautywaste.com. Our phone number is 559-367-7206. And be sure to visit us on Instagram and Facebook at Green Beauty Waste.
Is everything in life draining you? Come to Stretch 360. Our professional staff can offer you many options for relaxation like deep tissue or hot stone massages, infrared medical grade sauna. Once you leave us, you'll look and feel like $1,000,000. Stretch 360. Relaxation is only a stretch away.
The Art of Becoming Who We Are in Christ by Jolene Kennedy is a book about the process of maturity as we find our true identity, since God's promises must be received, embraced, and activated within us. Get your copy today and check out JoleneKennedy.com. Fleet Feet Fresno is more than just a running and sportswear store. Fleet Feet Sports' mission is to provide runners and other active Fresnans with gear that fits their individual needs, training that helps them reach their fitness goals, and races that satisfy their competitive spirit. Get to know Fleet Feet Fresno today.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I am your host, Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center. Anyway, going to what I was, or in regards to what I was saying at the end of the last segment, I want to read something here, and this is found on page 110 of the textbook. Holmes writes, he says, if man, humanity, takes his images of thought only from his previous experience, then he continues in the bondage which those previous experiences create. We can look at that as our life, but we can also look at that societally or nationally or in the world itself, right? I mean, what are we experiencing in the world today? Are we experiencing a resurgence of peace and harmony? Are we doing it locally? Are we doing it within our family? You know, where are we at? It seems like maybe there's a lot of chaos. What about in our spiritual homes, our spiritual centers? Where are we at there? You know, there's a lot of research and reports that tell us that within our own country, spirituality is, as a study for individuals, is greatly diminished over what it used to be. How does that speak to where we're at? How does that speak to where we're going? So again, if man takes the images of thought only from his previous experiences, then he continues in the bondage which these previous experiences create. And I think we see the effects of that. He says, if we talk about discord, we shall become more discordant. If the more we would arm, the more the world arms for war, and remember this is written in 1938, the more certain it is that there will be war. People who spend all their time talking about their unhappiness become more unhappy. Jesus understood these great laws of cause and effect in the universe, which work sometimes with apparent slowness, but always with sureness. You're treating, you're studying, you're treating. Maybe you're not seeing the demonstrations that somebody says that they're experiencing. Hang in there. There's a greater truth, a greater reality, a greater abundance for you. But you got to hang in there. That thing, faith, we can build a greater faith. That thing, belief, we can supercharge it. And it's done unto us as we believe. And with God, all things are possible. And God is our co-pilot, our inspirer, our guidance, our protector. But it takes faith, and it takes confidence. And that's something we can provide. And it's amazing. We provide it on an individual level, and it permeates out. It's almost like we're mini broadcasting systems, if you will. It's incredible. So he says, again, Jesus understood these great laws of cause and effect in the universe, which work sometimes with apparent slowness, but always with sureness. Don't forget that ever. Eventually, we shall understand that all human bondage is an invention of ignorance. There's conscious ignorance and there's unconscious ignorance. The effects are no different. But when we begin to realize that there's a greater truth and we seek to learn it, put it into practice in our lives, we can begin to shine the light of truth in the darkness of ignorance. We can begin to take hold and live our life at higher, greater degrees of livingness. Life was meant to be an adventure. How that adventure is defined is personal to each and every one of us. God created us in its image and likeness and nature and gifted us in potential, everything that we need, want, and desire to live our life and to live at higher, greater degrees of livingness. That's you, that's me, that's the entire world. When we begin to realize that individually, we bring peace, harmony, abundance, and love into the world. Think about that. An entire world living on that wavelength, if you will. We don't need to up-level, upgrade. We need to reconnect with the truth of who we are, with a greater understanding. And although the writings of Dr. Holmes weren't perfect, they are, I personally believe, a very sound map, if you will, roadmap, teaching, tool, road to understanding. You could do far worse. But, and the but is big, you got to be willing to give up. You give up the things that hold you in bondage. This thing called life, it lives through you. You know, at those times when you're at home and no one's around, and I may have said this last week, I don't remember, but close your eyes, pause and reflect, and feel the livingness in your body. Now, you can't describe that really to anybody, but you can experience it. But it's part of that one greater life. That life that lives you through you, that's God. Right there. If you knew that the creative energy of the universe were at your disposal and that that same power which made everything is flowing through you, would you not naturally feel that you possessed the pearl of great value, great price? If you knew how to use this power, would you not feel that you were on the verge of a new experience, wonderful and limitless in its possibility? If you knew that, you can find that out. You can discover it. It's pretty simple, but it's exact in how we are to enact our life in living this. Pretty much. He says the acceptance of the power is only the first step towards its use. For instance, people knew that electricity existed long before it was widely used. Okay, I'm going to skip through that because you kind of get the idea. It's only, and humanity only is able to use the various laws that we utilize to make our modern life once we discover them and then take that discovery and put it into practice. You know, whether it be electricity, electronics, whether it be the use of gravity, the use of light. You know, light is more than just something that illumines. You know, light as laser light is healing light, and it can be used for other things. You know, energy, understanding the energy that we didn't even know existed at one time that exists within the quantum vacuum. Always been there. We didn't know it. We believed that vacuums were perfectly empty. But that's changed. We've learned and we're growing. That's available to each and every one of us. Okay, he says, everything you desire already exists as possibility in life. By accepting your desire as though it were already an established fact, you use the law of this principle in a way which causes it to bring into your experience the thing which you have definitely specified through your act of faith. Awesome. You can do it. If you need a more basic understanding, I would suggest you can Google Neville, or you can go to YouTube and look up Neville. Neville was a great teacher of the use of the imagination. It's limited insofar as that's his major focus, but you know, if you need a more basic understanding or a roadmap, that's a good place to start. Then come back to the spiritual side that you find in New Thought, Science of Mind and Spirit. So, all right, where are we at in time-wise? I've got 2 segments left. I know this segment was short because we got a late start, but I want to take our second break now because I want to start with what we call the Our Father or the Lord's Prayer. I don't want to get it done in this next half hour. So I'll see you as soon as we get back. We'll get started.
Accomplish more with Gold Rush Merchant Services, powered through electronic payments, flat rate payment processing for businesses, transparent pricing that saves you up to 40% in processing fees. Other payment processors take a percentage of every transaction and add fees. Call Gold Rush Merchant Services CEO Gil Dowling at 559-536-0588.
Ghost Golf is Fresno's most spectacular family entertainment center. It's frightening how much fun you'll have on our 18-hole indoor haunted graveyard course. Skeletons welcome you, but watch out. All sorts of creatures may come to life. Ghost Golf is perfect for scary good parties, so book yours today. You'll get free plays at the Mummy Shooting Gallery, arcades, and air hockey. Check out our party and weekday specials online and like us on Facebook. Come play at family-friendly Ghost Golf. Yeah! Good times will haunt you.
For all your real estate needs, call Juliet Tadich with Clovis First, 559-323-2213, or visit clovisfirst.com. That's CLOVIS, the numeral 1, RevSteve.com. Whether you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, get a loan, or whatever the case may be, call Julia Tadich.
The Saga of Bridget and Amanda by Carol Love Forbes brings to life the struggles of historical women in early America. Find the Saga of Bridget and Amanda on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order your copy today.
At Laulea Travels, we strive to make your vacation experience as relaxing as possible. From the time you start dreaming about it to the time you're sharing your vacation photos with your friends and coworkers. Our vow is to treat your vacation as if it were our own. If personal service, attention to detail, and years of travel experience are important to you, then let Laulea Travels plan your next dream vacation. Visit lauleatravels.com or call 559-360-1933.
A dynamic litigator, in-tune listener, and forward thinker with almost a decade of experience, Nasser Nekumanish is a skilled attorney servicing clients throughout the Central Valley. When you need a lawyer, call 559-441-0114 and ask for Nasser Nekumanish.
Linda Lee Kane is an author of fantasies, thrillers, contemporary fiction, and children's books. Order a book by Linda Lee Kane on Amazon or on lindaleekane.com. Get twice the results in half the time. Call 559-349-7934 to schedule your appointment with Clovis Fit Body Bootcamp today. And follow Fit Body Bootcamp Clovis on Instagram.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, Reverend Steve Walling, from the Spiritual Awareness Center. Okay, so we start out here. Holmes writes, he says, Our Father. And then he goes on to say, this suggests a universal sonship as well as a universal fatherhood, spirit, or parent mind. That's true. But it's also a recognition and a declaration of this parenthood, this fatherhood, this infinite mind, this thing that we call first cause, source, our Father, Mother, Father, God, Goddess, however we look at it. But when we put our mind in that state and we open with the words, our Father, we're truly saying that there is one that is the source and Father of all that is, but it's also that which it has created too. You know, the sonship, we are that son, male, female, doesn't make any difference. He says, which art, and he says this statement is a statement of absolute being, and it implies that which is, God is. Our Father, which art, you are, you're it, God is, the I am, only one, a unity, a oneness. In heaven. And what he says the kingdom of heaven is within. The creative power of spirit exists at the center of our own being, in heaven, in harmony, in all of its fullness. When we say, Our Father, which art in heaven, we're not speaking to something that is beyond us, outside of us. We're not speaking to some far-off being or some far-off place. We're recognizing a timeless truth, an infinite power at the core of our own beingness. We're setting the stage in our mind, in our hearts. You know, oftentimes, and too many times, people get caught up intellectually in this instead of allowing it to be a beingness of experience, that we use words, we use language to recognize within ourselves, embody, trigger, connect. Okay? Hallowed be thy name. Now Holmes's take on this, he says, in the exaltation of his jubilant and beholding soul, Jesus proclaimed the wondrous name of God, the ineffable sweetness of the divine nature, and the glory of its eternal reign. Understand, too, that at that time, the understanding of holy, hallowed, holy, was solely and only the divine. The holy, anything, was God's. The Holy of Holies, God's home. This is holy ground. This is God's ground. And that recognition is not a claim of separateness. It's a claim of relationship, okay? Hallowed, holy is thy name. God's name, holy, and it's God's. And what is God's name? God's name, as given to Moses, I am. I am that I am. Hallowed be thy name, he says. Thy kingdom come. And Holmes goes on to say the kingdom of God is joy. The kingdom of God is harmony and wholeness. It is completion, perfection, and peace. It is that to which nothing need to be added and from which nothing can be taken. The highest treasure of this kingdom is love. And that's it. Okay, when he says, thy kingdom come, we're declaring, if you will, if you want to put this in terms of affirmative treatment, we're making that declaration, thy kingdom, God's love. And although it was written in a content of something future, it's actually a declaration now. Thy kingdom come now. God's love now. God's wholeness now. Okay? And once we do that, then the next line is, thy will, God's will, be done. But what is God's will? God's will as we live our life is that each of us live our life at a greater and higher degree of livingness. Not apart from, but a unity with, highest, greatest degree of oneness. But yet individualized in a way that only the divine infiniteness could have ever. It didn't create us in this instantaneous, free-thinking, absolute, independent being of consciousness. It created us with all that in potential, with just the recognition of our individuality, and left us to learn the rest throughout humanity. And it's been an ongoing process, some ups, some downs, but it's also an individual spiritual process. Some down, some up, okay? But it's ours. It's ours as individuals. It's ours as humanity, and it's gifted to us from the divine so that we can grow, and in that growing we can experience, and in that experience we can express life at a higher, greater degree of livingness. Okay? Thy will be done, and that is God's will. Thy will is that we live this life, higher, greater degree. That adventure is ours individually as we define it, in a way that never, ever, at any time, takes anything from any other living human being, any other living being at all, in the sense that there are life processes, absolutely. But when we hold ourselves in divine harmony with all of creation, we recognize a greater truth. Thy will, in earth as it is in heaven. Okay. In earth, in other words, in the material expression as it is in our inner intuitive guidance, understanding, recognition, as humanity can recognize, understand, and wrap our minds around, of this creative, great, freeing infiniteness. Holmes writes, he says, it's said that one of the disciples of Jesus asked him when the kingdom of heaven would come on earth, and he answered, when the without shall become as the within. Think about that. Speaking to each of us as individual beings, that the without will The kingdom will come when the without becomes as the within. That places an incredible amount of power within each of us. Now, there's some people who say, well, there's responsibility. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's responsibility. I would say it's opportunity. And we can choose or we can choose not to. And that also is our gift from the divine. Because we have to be able to make that choice to go left or to go right, to go up or to go down, to seek greater unity and oneness, or to seek a greater degree of belief in separateness. We can never truly be separate, but we can believe, and it's done unto us as we believe, and we experience the effects in the conditions of that belief, but it's not truth. You know, one of the things, and probably most of you that are religious science students and other New Thought students have read and studied Judge Thomas Troward, and there's a lot of good there. For some people, he's a little wordy and difficult to get through. I personally enjoyed reading it, but that's just my personal thing. But one of the things, the great things that he brought, just like Goldsmith's concept of practicing the presence of God throughout our entire day. Troward talks about this idea of the relative and the absolute. And when we talk about and understand this idea of the absolute, we're talking about the absolute, creative source, truth. People get tied up and wrapped up in this idea of, one philosophy claiming truth and another philosophy saying, well, that's not truth, our philosophy is truth. You can clear the table of that. There is ultimately one ultimate truth. Do we know what that is? No. Do we, like with other things, do we see effects of that? Yes, we do. We got to stop arguing over. Now, when I say small stuff, it's not that knowing the truth is small stuff, but putting our judgment on what we think we know is small stuff in the ordinary scheme of things. We need to let that go. That idea of giving up judgment, it kind of falls in that category. So, okay, Troward talks about the absolute. And he also talks about something that he called the relative. The relative is the affects the world of conditions, materiality. The relative is what we can define with our five senses. There's nothing that we can see, hear, taste, touch in our five senses that is not an effect of some kind. But you have to go behind the effects to that one ultimate, to that thing which has no components, no parts, and yet within it all parts exist. But we live in the relative, material world. But spiritually, in consciousness and mind, think about it, to the degree that we allow our consciousness to live in the relative, to have our beliefs there, to buy in there. That's a universe that's full of limitation and discord and chaos. That's the relative. When we let our consciousness live in the absolute, that's where abundance, peace, harmony, love. There are things there that I am sure that are so far beyond our ability to even begin to understand that, we can only speculate at best. But Troward said, to the extent that we live in the relative, to that extent we don't live in the absolute. And to the extent that we live in the absolute, to that extent we don't live in the relative. In other words, we remove ourselves from the effects of conditions and establish ourselves in the effects of divine principle, first cause. We're going to take our last break. See you when we come back.
When you need to get fit, contact Gary Torres, IFBB Pro, specializing in weight loss, body transformations, and contest prep.
Email GaryTorres5336@yahoo.com.
Hey, I'm Chris DeVold. Tune in every Friday night on CentralValleyTalk.com when I bring you Sex, Drugs, Chris DeVold, where I'll give you 3 guesses on what we talk about. And I also vow to bring you 1 live local music act a week. So tune in every week because you never know what kind of music you're going to hear right here on CentralValleyTalk.com.
The Space Colony Journals are an epic tale of a family's struggle to survive. Meet the courageous women and dangerous men who dare to carve a home on the alien world of Vensu. Get your copy today. Available on Amazon and GailDailiesFineArt.com.
You enter this door with expired tags. Beyond is another dimension, a dimension of regulations, a dimension of long waits. You have reached the registration zone. What looks like an ordinary shop is actually Mitchell Smog, located in the heart of the Tower District, a few minutes from the DMV. Mitchell Smog offers your vehicle a STAR-certified smog inspection. So remember Mitchell Smog when you need to pass through the registration zone.
Contact Sarah Hernandez of June and Matt Photography to schedule your portrait, engagement, wedding, or next family photo session. But that's not all. Sarah is also your personal brandographer, helping you ditch the stock photos and get images that sell. Call 559-412-3721. Visit JuneandMattPhoto.com and follow Sarah on Instagram and Facebook.
Give your child the tools to succeed. The Yergubian Academic Center offers one-on-one and group educational lessons by appointment. Over 90% of our students show significant improvement in their academics in just 3 months. Students of the Yergubian Academic Center have gone on to UCLA, UC San Diego, Yale, Stanford, and many more prestigious universities. Schedule a tutoring session today. Call 559-437-3973.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno. Moving on, Holmes quotes here. He says, this from the Bible, from Jesus. He says, "Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven." Okay, the broad scope of this revelation of Jesus includes man, with his physical body, his physical environment, and some part of the divine pattern. When we say, when we speak the words, "Give us this," okay, when we speak this word, that give us, it's not like we're supplicating, asking, hoping that God will provide for us. And in reality, it's a recognition of the what is. Because the divine principle, God, that mind, that life, is constantly, consistently, abundantly giving. It's as much a recognition of our place in the consciousness of the universe to be receptive to the good that's there. And he goes on to say, he says, the divine givingness is the eternal and inexhaustible gift of heaven. We were created as individual beings to live our life as individual beings. And that individuality, just as we've said in the past, just like our fingerprints, there's no other. And yet, at the core of our being, there is a design, if you will, a floor plan, a set of instructions for us to live in this individuality at the greatest and highest degree of livingness. And in order for us to do that, we have certain needs along the way. And they are there in potential, and they await our call upon them. And when we make that demand, "Give us from the storehouse of heaven," God says, you got it, basically. He says, Now, moving on. Well, it's all important, but when he says, and forgive us our debts. Okay. There's a classical way that we understand that. In some translations, debts is replaced by the word sin, and neither one of them are really important to the point. What's important is we've made mistakes, whether we've made mistakes in dealing with others in our life, whether we've made mistakes in our life, and we call them mistakes, or we can call them sins, or we can call them creating debts. But ultimately, what they are is our history, our story. But we're not our story. We're not our history. We have to awaken to the truth of that. And once we do, we can recognize that unlike the Eastern religions that teach that karma is something that can go on and through one life experience after another, it's not about karma. It's about recognizing that we can take our story, as a book, as a thought, a belief, and we can put it on the shelf of our memory, and we don't have to be owned by it. We don't have to be controlled by it. As a matter of fact, Holmes goes on, and he says, as we forgive those that sin or have debt against us, okay? Likewise, if we love our neighbor, we forgive them. We hold nothing against them. Now, some people that want to continue to be difficult to be around, and I'll just leave it at that. Good, healthy boundaries are a good, healthy way to live your life. But remember, the boundary, the extent of your love doesn't stop at the boundaries you establish, okay? Just as we put our story on the shelf, so those, whoever those are, the others you might say, have that available to them. The story of the prodigal son, if you will, when they recognize that in their father's house, even as a servant, things are far better than where they're at. They can make that choice also. We don't hold whatever it is against them. We don't create that storyline for them. We let it go. We forgive them, if you will. And forgiveness it's as easy as we want to make it difficult. And it can be extremely difficult because we were raised that way. We believe it to be. But it doesn't have to be. But it still is a journey and a process. And it's included in this great presentation that Jesus brought to the world for his disciples, because this way of praying didn't exist in Judaism at that time. The impetus that led to him teaching his disciples was because they watched him, they saw him. It was different. They didn't understand it. But they understood that it was a powerful thing. They understood that it created a connectedness with him and the Father that they didn't experience in their worship, and so they asked him to teach them. And this was the presentation that he brought to them, for them to learn and embody, not by memorizing the words, but by understanding its truth. He says, and lead us not into temptation. Okay, he says this is not so much as a supplication as it is a statement of spiritual conviction. Okay. Man, I put my story on the shelf. I'm cleaning up my act. I'm practicing the presence of God. I'm in the moment. I'm working on creating a greater understanding of this thing called the absolute, and I'm moving out of the relative. I'm creating a better world from within so that I will experience a better world in the without. Okay? So that's where we're at. And lead us not into temptation. We give it up. Complaints, we give up anger, hatred, all that stuff. We give it up. He says, and deliver us from evil. And I think I expressed this last week, and I read it again in one of the readings out of the textbook. Evil has been anthropomorphized. We gave it a being, a symbol, and it's the anti-God. It's many different things. And in truth, what evil really is an expression in the belief of limitation and the acting upon that. You can point to all the individuals out of history, and the ones that we look at, we say they were evil. It starts with a belief of limitation, separateness. You can't believe that you're separate if you don't believe in limitation. If you don't believe in limitation, there cannot be any separate. You can't believe in your need to take from another, whether it be their possessions, their life, their ideas. Doesn't make any difference. If you don't believe in limitation, you can't do it. When you give up the belief in limitation, you open yourself up to the acceptance, the receptivity of an infinite goodness, everywhere present, amazingly abundant, always available. We're never alone. Okay? So, let's see, where did I leave off? Forgive us and lead us from and deliver us from evil, for thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. And Holmes caps this by saying, this kingdom, this power, and this glory never changes. The truth is forever established. The eternal in its infinity, eternal in its maturity. It knows no decay. Even though life has already provided for our good, we must accept that good. Our acceptance should be more definite. Therefore, we must make some kind of demand upon the power. Each and every day, we meet the day thanking the divine in a state of gratitude for the gift of today. Then we state in our mind, before we've opened our eyes, we declare the goodness of that day. Now, we may know in the back of our mind from that list of various responsibilities that we got to face today that it's going to be tough, but it can never be tougher than the bigness, the vastness of the divine principle, the availability of the good, the power of God, expressing in our life, in my life, in your life. There's one life. That life is God. That life is our life now. I've had to rush through it a little bit today. We may touch a little bit on this next week, but we pretty much wrapped up chapter 6, so I hope it's been good. I hope I've enlightened you, shared with you, or at least tickled your gray matter such that you'll seek to do some investigation on your own. However it is, you put it into practice each and every day. Start as simply as you can, as you understand it. Commit to it. You are an incredible being, living an incredible life in a divine gift. So, have a great week, and as you go through the week, know that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is, all is well, and you can email me with questions if you want. I do respond. Have a great week, my friends.